Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the No Second Chance podcast. And today we have a very special guest with us, Shari Dukes. So without her, we would not be here. So big thank you. Do you want to kind of give your story, kind of explain why you're helping us, why everything happened?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction.
Of course.
I'm so glad to be here. I live in the community.
Mm-hmm.
My son went to school in the community, and in 2019 he died taking a fentanyl pill laced with fentanyl, and just felt like that was really important to make sure that we get the information out. So as an educator, made sure I believe in what schools do, so went to the school board of Tempe Union, and as well as other school boards, just making sure that they're spreading that information. And then just really working with any group like the No Second Chance team and other groups just to make sure that we all have the information to save lives.
Which is amazing. I know when you were talking to our school board, that's how it got to our social emotional wellness department and finally reached us. So we really would not be here without you guys or without you. So thank you again.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with talking about your son and everything? So why don't you kind of give his story? What was he like? All of that.
Sure. So my son's name is Ethan. And he went to school in this community from preschool through high school. He died in his junior year at high school in 2019 from taking a pill laced with fentanyl. He active in school, loved outdoors, was athletic, soccer, track, wrestling, enjoyed being around people, had a witty, wicked sense of humor, and so was very creative in that sense, and just really wanted to make a difference in the lives of people.
Yeah, he sounds like an amazing person.
Yeah,
I wish to have met him. And I think it's important for people to understand that usually the stereotype they have in their head of who would take this kind of drug is often very different than the reality of it, because you don't expect this funny, nice, smart, successful kid to die from something like this. So it's very important. Were there any red flags that you noticed beforehand? Any hey, was he acting weird at all the day before? Was it just a complete accident?
Well, if we're talking about just the situation, it was, he brought in dinner and he's like, Mom, I'm just going to go out, hang out with some friends, but I'm going to come home early, get a good night's sleep. And I'm like, okay, that's a little different. So I always have the conversation because it's a teenager. All right, let's go through the list, the checklist,
yes, been through plenty of those.
Making good decisions, you know, if you're in that situation. So always doing that. Came in, Ethan was being challenged with some just situations overall, but in a really good place. So no, nothing like this ever came to my mind.
Which is crazy to think about, how out of the blue it can come. And kind of going back to what you said earlier about having that conversation, what do you want parents out there to know? What do you want them to have conversations about with their children so they know?
So I think it's just being very honest, and it's not always the easiest conversation, but I was very comfortable having it. Okay, let's go through the list. Okay, you're going to make a good decision, so let's talk about driving. Let's talk about people in the cars, alcohol, drugs, if people are asking you to do something. But I think now that I've had 5 years and really just thinking more about it and get settled into it, I think it's also that next step of just sitting down and saying, I'm really not comfortable. Something's not feeling right with my heart. I'd really like to have a little longer conversation, which was interesting. I felt that way, and I said, okay, on Saturday morning, Ethan and I are going to sit down, we're going to have a really good breakfast, and I feel like we need to have one of those longer conversations.
Yeah.
Don't wait for those longer conversations.
Right. It's crazy, because I feel like a lot of parents and kids are scared of those conversations, even though they're so important. If you had that conversation, it could save your kid's life, but I guess parents just don't know how to start that, how to broach that, and they're careful, they're comfortable in their safe zone, which they don't want to get out of.
Yeah.
So it's scary.
I heard something yesterday I thought was really good, and it was dealing with negotiations, but it was about, and they were saying, oh, this would be great with teens, but it was about just saying, what are my aspirations? Where do you want to go? What is it that your goal? What do you want to do? And then here's my expectations. I can't do your life for you, but I can certainly help guide and support and encourage, as well as provide some really strong parameters if I see you going off rails.
Which is exactly what a lot of kids need.
Yeah.
Just that kind of guidance, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know we kind of talk a lot about, like, how the actual people, like, the deaths that were affected by fentanyl, but what about, like, the people around those deaths? How did Ethan's death kind of, like, impact you and the community and everything?
Yeah. Well, my life's forever different.
Right.
You know, yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's hard.
Yeah, his 22nd birthday is next Friday, and so I'm going to walk the Camino in Spain, just still continuing to honor his memory.
Yeah.
And,
That'll be really cool.
and get the information out. But I remember friends saying, what could I have done? Did I cause this? And, I'm like, you're 15, 16, 17. There's no one caused anything. It's just we all have to really show up and peers, you're not protecting when you're seeing a friend that's struggling, and you're not going to someone else beyond yourself. It's like, well, I was trying to deal with it on my own, but you can't. You got to go to the adult, the parent, the counselor, whoever that is, to get some higher level assistance. And so I think everything, my life has totally changed. So, and I know that there's so many folks that have said, gosh, I miss him. I miss that crazy brain of his. Gosh, he would be going off to law school next year. And so it's just really,
it's hard.
Yeah. So hopefully he is making that impact just of who he is.
Yeah, I know his impact has carried on with this whole fentanyl campaign. We really would not be here without all that he's done and that impact, for sure. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there any kind of, like, misconceptions surrounding fentanyl that you want to, like, educate any parents or children out there that you've kind of learned with your experience over the past couple years? Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is that it's in everything. And with this insurgence of vaping and e-cigarettes and cannabis, sometimes but alcohol is a big denominator that can, all of these things make changes to your brain.
Yeah.
And when you're young already, you're already making some changes that you're like, huh, what?
Yeah.
What? But it just continues to really impact all of us. And so I think sometimes as parents and community members, we think that, we got through it. Fentanyl has changed the whole game, and it's in so many different things. It's so minuscule. It's not controlled. We think it's kids seeking. I've heard parents say, well, why would they buy a 2 milligram pill versus a 5 milligram pill, which 2 milligrams is the lethal dosage? And they don't know. They're thinking they're getting something to relax or go to sleep or de-stress or get ready for a test. I mean, there's so many reasons why young people are making those kinds of decisions. The decision is not to take fentanyl. The decision is to take something to relieve something or to get something. And fentanyl just happens to be that product that you can't change. You can't go back. I can't go back and say, I wish I would have known.
Right, no second chance.
Exactly.
It's crazy, like, there are very, very few people that go searching for fentanyl.
Right.
But it's still one of the deadliest drugs out there because it's mixed into so many other like normal drugs like Xanax, oxycodone, all of these other things that kids are looking for, and then they have no idea. Adderall, like everything. They would have no idea. Yeah. It's terrifying.
And they think it's not them. I listened to a parent whose son was at ASU, a junior, and he actually took half of one, thinking only half would, for some reason, that this would be the good half and the bad half would have something else.
No.
And they need to understand that these are mixed in really unsafe environments.
Yeah.
And there is no rhyme or reason. This is not a prescription you're ordering. This is put together by somebody for the pure sense of making money.
Yeah, I've seen some of the pictures of like the illicit fentanyl labs, and they're just dirty.
Yeah.
They're like jungles. There's no measurement, no like sterilization.
At all. No
it's
thoughts.
nasty, and you can't tell the difference. In the end, it looks the exact the same as like a pill made in an actual lab.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And they're shiny blue. I mean, or they're shiny. They look just like any other pill. And I think that's the other piece of the community is parents should be talking to kids really young about prescriptions and about what's the purpose of medicine, and you never take medicine from someone else. and just as early and developmentally appropriate as possible. We've got to get the word out.
Yeah, which is why, again, we're here. Thank you again for coming today.
Sure.
Is there any last messages you want to put out there? Any reminders, advice from your experiences?
Yeah, I think that if I were to think of anything, it's if we just focus on the fentanyl crisis alone, which is such a deadly crisis, especially for young people, but we can't forget there's all these other things that are happening, from mental health to the vaping. All of these things are reducing our resiliency. And I think there's just too much stigma out there that, oh, these must have been those kids. There are no those kids. They're just not. They're kids doing the best they can. Families doing the best they can, and we all just need to bond together and keep working forward.
A lot of kids just don't realize that it could be them. When you're a teenager, you feel invincible, but it's not. It could be any one of you. You got to understand and
absolutely
be informed for sure.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
For sure.
Yeah. So this is for you, Shari.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you can let other parents be, sorry, I phrased that wrong. How can other parents make their kids more comfortable to let them know, it's safe to talk to me? Because I know it can be hard as a teenager to feel like it's safe to talk to your parents and not be judged or, shamed.
I've gone through that question, in my mind so many times because I'm like, how did I approach it? Did I approach it? I know there were some times I'm like, man, I could have been so much more compassionate or softer. And other times I'm like, oh, okay. I think when they come and it's like, I've been smoking pot. Instead of, what? You can never do that again. Talk to them. Talk to me about it. Tell me what's going on. Why that? Why what else are you feeling like you might need? And what can I do to support? And still being really clear about the rules are we don't do drugs in our house. And here's the reasons why. But I'm going to be alongside you, supporting you for whatever that is, because I love you.
Yeah, I feel like that understanding part is much more helpful than that reactive.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, and I kind of heard that you've been working with the DEA and some other community partners. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. After Ethan died, I just felt like I needed to do something. It's how can I be so much of an active mom and in the community and not knowing this fentanyl thing? And so I have a very dear friend who is a retired DEA agent, and I had just visited them in Miami, because that's Miami, Florida, where Ethan and I lived for many years, and he connected me with the Phoenix office. And I talked to this wonderful person just saying, my son died. I'm just trying to figure out what I can do. And, my thought is, can I pass out flyers, whatever that is.
Right.
And they took an immense amount of time with me just to help me understand what's going on. What is the lethal dosage? Because I did not know, even at that time, after I got Ethan's autopsy report, to say how he died. And so just really working with them and connecting with them. They connected me with AZ-HIDA, which is a high-intensity drug trafficking agency. They do amazing prevention work, getting the information out, looking at data and statistics, going out to schools and community agencies, very much under the breast of the work. DEA, I've been able to work. They host a family summit because of the fentanyl crisis. So in June will be the 3rd year of our family summit, and these are parents whose children have died, and children can be teens, can be adults. It does not matter. Unfortunately, we're all in that walking that same path. And at the national level, and then the DEA I've been in touch with. They have an educational foundation that does a lot of prevention intervention, so I've been able to do some work with them. There is so many agencies out there just really trying to get the word out. Hard Stop is one of those prevention agencies that are just creating from grassroots, that are working with other groups like Not My Kid, schools, just... I think it's just about people continuing to talk, and like the question earlier about how do you talk with your kid? There are so many resources through DEA, through AZ-HIDA, through Hard Stop, through some of the other agencies about how do you talk with your kid? How do you teach your kid how to refuse a drug? And for God's sake, always, blame the parent. My parent won't let me do it. I got to go
Right,
home.
yeah.
Just use whatever you can in a healthy way
Right.
to make it happen. But there's so many great agencies, DEA being one of those, that they're just not doing law enforcement.
Right.
They are really working the whole gamut.
Which I don't think a lot of people realize, which
Amazing.
it's amazing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people could just like shut down after losing like their son or someone
Mm-hmm.
close to them, but the fact that you kind of kept pushing and wanting to help is amazing. So
Oh, thanks.
props to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Thanks. Thanks.
of course.
Thank you,
Yes.
Jane.
Thank you so much again for coming
Absolutely.
on. This was
Absolutely.
amazing.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.